Welcome. Now, for the last 6 weeks, we've been talking about how you and I can prioritize and elevate areas of our lives that will help us become the best us we've ever been. And we've been doing that on Sundays. We've been doing it between Sundays. Over 138 smaller group settings. People have been meeting, watching a video, using a workbook. And we've been talking about these 6 critical areas of life that as you elevate them, it raises the level of our life. Now, let me just kind of highlight where we've been. And today is our last week of this series. Week 1, we talked about faith. That it's impossible to please God without faith. At the core of faith is trusting. And what makes trust powerful is who or what we're trusting in. So it's not just faith in anything or anyone, it's trusting in God. In fact, the Bible says we can't please God unless we trust Him. We can't please anybody without trusting. So we talked about what trusting is all about and how we do that, how we grow in our trust, how we grow in our life. In the second week, we talked about food. Well, actually, Dr. Contreras did. And he talked to us about the fact that 70% of premature deaths could be helped or avoided if we simply ate right, if our health choices are right, that the food we eat is medicine, that's either healing and helping us or hurting and hindering us. And so he talked to us about food. It was a great word, and all of the weekends, all of the teachings are online if you missed any of them, and it's a powerful teaching. He gave us a free book about our hearts to beat or not to beat, because he was just a great gift to us about how we can elevate our health by our eating habits. Then in part 3, we talked about fitness. And like where's fitness in the Bible? Well, I'll show you. It's found in Thessalonians. Paul writes this, 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 23. May God make you holy and whole. That means set apart and complete. Put you together, spirit, soul, and body, and keep you what? Fit. God is committed to our fitness, spirit, soul, and body for the coming of Christ, for the plans and purposes God has for us. God cares about our spirit. He cares about our soul, our inner life, our mind, our thinking, and He cares about our bodies. Your body, my body matters. God made it. Jesus died for it. The Holy Spirit wants to fill it. Our bodies matter. And so even though they're temporary as far as on this earth, we're not complete without a body. And even in eternity, we're going to have a heavenly body. How many are waiting for that one? So you're going to trade it in. But we are incomplete without a body. And we talked about our bodies and fitness, and we often don't in church, but we talked about health and things that we can do and how you and I need to prioritize fitness, and we need to have reasons and routines and rewards. And that was the third part. Then in part 4, we talked about focusing. And as neuroscientists tell us, that you and I can really only fully focus on one thing at a time. Now, I know some of you go, nah, Jeff, man, I'm a multitasker. You might be, but you're not multi-excellent at all the multitasks. Because nobody does everything at the same time in great ways. You just don't. And if you want to raise the level of your life, you and I have to raise the level of our focus in life. And so we talked about focusing our time and focusing our thinking, focusing our ambitions, what we go after. Because the more focused we are, the more successful we're going to be in this life and the next. And then Pastor Mike talked last weekend about a 5th area, and that is friends. He quoted an African proverb that simply says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That when you and I want to go far in life, we do it best by unleashing the potential and power of friendships, of relationships. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the 138 plus smaller groups that are meeting. Large settings like this are great for inspiration and celebration, but to really get to know somebody, you got to have some face time, some friendship time. And as we make time for others in our life, it expands our life in amazing ways. And so that was last weekend. Now this weekend, as I told you, we're going to wrap up this series, and we're going to wrap it up by talking about finances. Now I got a quick question. How many of you could use some elevation in your financial life? How many of you need your financial life elevated? Raise both hands, okay? Like I got and wave them, okay? Like I'm there. We're going to talk about finances because here's the deal when it comes to money. You and I are either managing our money by telling it where to go and what to do, or our money is managing us. And we're left to wonder, where did it go? And what am I going to do now? I have none. Okay, so you're either managing it or it's managing you. You either know where it is or you don't. And we're going to talk for the next few moments because money is one of those core issues of life. It is so important. The Bible deals with money almost more than any other subject. Jesus, almost half or 2/3 of his parables deal with money. He taught more about money than heaven and hell and prayer all combined because it's such an everyday part of our life. And Jesus wants us to know, and God wants us to understand how to manage our money in the very best way so you and I can experience the very best life. And that's what this weekend is about. And that's what a short story Jesus tells in Luke chapter 16 is all about. I want to share it with you. We'll kind of read the whole short story because it is short, and we're going to walk back through it. Let me show you. Luke 16, on the screens, verse 9 in your Bibles from the New International Version. Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. Now, we pause for a moment. This rich man had so much stuff, somebody else had to help watch it. Okay, so somebody else helped to manage his stuff. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management because you cannot be manager any longer. Apparently this guy wasn't doing a very good job. Rumor got back to the boss, to the owner, that he was misusing his stuff, his possessions, so he says, you are fired. But not yet. I got to get all the books, gather all the stuff together, tell me, I need to know where it is, what's happening. Verse 3. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down. How? Quickly. That's a key word. We're going to come back to that. Quickly. And make it 450. Then he asked the second, how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill and make it 800. So you catch what he's doing. And obviously he did this with others, but Jesus just gives us the first two. So this manager, this money manager, he calls in the first guy, says, what's your bill? Cut it in half. Calls in the second, what's your bill? Cut that. Now, Jesus is a master storyteller. And most of what he taught, Mark tells us, he taught in the form of stories. Stories capture us. They capture our imagination. We remember stories. And so he tells these stories, and he would tell stories, we often refer to them as parables. He tells stories of things that are familiar to teach the unfamiliar. He takes things that everyone can relate to illustrate and to teach spiritual principles that sometimes we've missed or we haven't learned. And in the stories of Jesus' parables, all the parables always had a kick. What I mean is, you thought you knew where it was going, but that wasn't where it was going. The story of the prodigal son, the story of the Good Samaritan. We hear these stories, but when the audience heard them for the first time, it wasn't where they thought that story was going. And something about us, we love to jump to the end. In fact, some of you have already filled out the blanks and you don't even know what it is yet, because you always jump ahead, okay? So in this story, and I don't have time to really just kind of move through it the way that I believe Jesus would have done it, the audience is jumping ahead of him. And everybody's thinking, this guy is in trouble. I mean, he's not only lost his job, now he's cost his owner even more money because he's reduced all these, they're all just like, this is not going to be pretty. And then Jesus throws them this amazing curve. He says to them, watch. He says, then the master, verse 8, commended the dishonest manager because he had acted how? Shrewdly. Then Jesus turns to his disciples and says, okay, this is for you. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. The people that don't think about God, trust in God, serve God, are more shrewd in how they manage their money than are sons and daughters of God. I tell you, verse 9, use worldly wealth, that's money, to gain friends for yourself. So that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into what? Eternal dwellings. Now, this story of Jesus has left a lot of people like scratching their heads. Oh, hold it. Jesus talks about a guy who was like not a character person, not an integrity person, and he tells us to be like this. Now, listen, Jesus was not commending this money manager's integrity. He wasn't commending his ethics, but he was commending his shrewdness. Now, he talks about that word shrewd, and we need to kind of define it for ourselves. It's not like a word that we use a lot. But let me give you kind of the working definition of the word shrewd. It means innovative, insightful, single-mindedly devoted to a goal. And Jesus said, listen, there are people in this world who know what they want, and they get it. They're amazing in their innovation. They're amazing in their creativity. They're amazing in their all-out effort. They will stop at nothing. There are certain people, and when you see people that have really achieved, let me tell you something, they didn't achieve by accident. They achieved on purpose. And sometimes what they did to get there is fascinating, and it's amazing. And Jesus says what's true of people in the world is they will stop at nothing to get what they're after, and they will use what they have to get what they're after, but the children of God don't. The children of God are not as shrewd in how they manage their money as are many in the world. And he challenges us. This shrewd manager used his money to have houses to go to. He says, I want to use your money to have there's an eternal purpose to how you use your wealth. And then he teaches us in this story some of the principles, some of the practices for being the very best money manager we can be, which is a key to living the very best life we can live. Every one of us manages money, some a lot, some a little. I don't care how much you're managing, you are a manager of money. And to have the best life you can have, you and I need to become the best manager of money we can be. And in this story, we're given 4 lessons, 4 very practical principles. I want you to write them down, and these are 4 things I really challenge you and me to do. Here's the first one in your notes. The best money managers face their financial facts. We all have a different set of facts. Your financial facts are different than mine. The question is not what are your facts, the question is do you know them? Are you facing them? This money manager had messed up, but to his credit, once he messed up and found out he was going to lose his job, he got real fast. He looked at his condition very honestly, very authentically. He got real about his financial condition. One of the things that great money managers do is they face the facts about their financial condition. They're very real about it. Let me give you a couple of ways this applies to us in your notes. First of all, our money is on loan. It isn't actually ours. I really do want you to write on loan because everything you have is on loan, including your life. And all of you go, come on, Jeff, my stuff's not on loan, it's mine. Okay, let me ask you a question. If you think your money is yours, if you think your stuff is yours, you think that car is yours, that house is yours, you think it's yours, here's my question. 100 years from right now, who's going to own that money and stuff? It won't be you. No, I hope you live a long life, but you're not going to be 100, whatever you are now. And somebody else is going to have it because you don't own it. Paul puts it like this. He writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy 6, verse 7. We brought nothing with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. That means life's on loan. See, now, again, I'm blessed. When both of our kids were born, they were still, years and years ago, dads were like out in the waiting room, and but then dads got to go into the living room, and so I was there when both kids were born. In fact, when Jordan was born, our first son, first child, the doctor actually gave me scissors to cut the umbilical cord. I'm like, hold on a minute, I'm paying you. I'm not doing that. And if I cut the cord, give me some money back because I'm part of this. So no, like, I'm here, okay? I don't need, so anyway, but I did. So like, and Jackie was born, and I can tell you, because with my own eyes, neither one came with pockets. They didn't bring anything with them. They just arrived. And when you die, you don't take it with you. there are funeral homes and there are places where they have some suits and clothes for people, and interestingly, the burial suits don't have pockets because you don't need any, because you're not taking stuff when you die. So what you and I have got to understand, we got to get a perspective that I didn't come with something, I'm not taking it with me. So between my birth date and my death date, anything and everything I've got is on loan. And when I understand that I'm not an owner, I'm a manager, it starts to change how I think and view things. And then once he got fired, he got financially woke. Okay, like being woke often is used like being socially woke, and that's we can talk about the importance of being socially woke, but let me tell you what is incredibly important. Here's what I want you to write down. We must get woke about our financial condition. We need to get woke about the financial condition that we are in right now. The best money managers don't wait for a crisis to wake up. They assess, they evaluate their finances on a regular basis. In fact, Proverbs 27:24, the richest man who ever lived, Solomon writes, watch your business interests closely. Know the state or condition of your flocks and your herds. Come on, John, I ain't flocks and herds. No, in biblical times, that's your assets. That's your business. That's your money. In agricultural societies, agrarian societies, animals and crops, and that's where your money, that was your value. And Solomon says, watch it closely. Know the condition of it. In fact, I want to give you a couple of questions that you and I need to answer on a regular basis about our own personal financial condition. Here's one of them. How much do I owe? How much do I owe? It's amazing how many people say, how much do you owe? I have no idea. I just pay the minimum payments. I have no idea. How much do you owe on your credit cards? How much do you owe your mortgage or your rent or your car payment or taxes? Or how much do you owe? How much is going out? How much money do I owe? A second question, how much do I own? How much do I have that's paid for? That if that somebody's not going to haul it away or take it away because it's paid for and it still has value. What do I have that has value? And we talked about last week or so, there are things that appreciate in value and things that depreciate in value. You buy that new car and you drive it off the lot and you couldn't get it back the same money you got because how many know that new smell goes fast? So, but is it going up? Now, there are other cars you can buy, the values go up. It's just amazing. So the question is, what do I owe? What do I own? Here's a third question that great money managers ask themselves. It's this: what's my financial margin? A margin is simply the amount available beyond what's necessary. I have a margin of time when I have more time available than I need. I have more money than I need. A margin, let me tell you what's so important about margins in life, is that margins in any area of life, but especially money, margins give us options. Mark Twain said, the lack of money is the root of all evil. What? The Bible says the love of money. Mark Twain says the lack of money. Both of them are talking about the fact that money plays a key role in our life, and when you lack money, you lack options. Now, how many of you found out when you have a little bit of money, you have more choices? And so the question is, how do I create margin in my life? Well, there's really only two ways. I got to make more and spend less. But how do I create margins? Because margins are opportunities. Margins are options. And when I don't have margins in my life, I limit my choices in life. And that's why it's really important to understand financially, what's my picture? Okay, let me put a story for him. There was this young man, he proposed to this young lady, she accepted, and then the dad wanted to meet him, the future father-in-law. So he meets his future son-in-law, says, let's just talk for a little bit. So he kind of takes him on a side room, and he wants to talk about finances. And so he asked him, he says, so tell me about your job. He goes, I don't have a job. God will provide. He said, okay, well, how much do you have? Do you have a savings account? Do you have some money? Do you have stocks? Do you have IRA? Do you have some retirement? He goes, nope. God will provide. Well, I said, how do you plan on supporting my daughter once you marry her? Because let me just tell you, she's not cheap. So how do you plan on supporting her and in the married life, and how do you plan on paying for all? And he says, God will provide. He sees him out the door. His wife comes down and sees this concerned look on his face, and she says, what happened? He goes, well, it's good news, bad news. She goes, tell me the bad news first. I said, well, the bad news is he has no job, he has no money, and he doesn't have any way to support our daughter once they get married. She said, what's the good news? He said, well, the good news is he thinks I'm God. Okay. Anyway, you gotta know your financial, somebody better ask you. You better ask yourself. Because margin gives us options. And wise money managers face the facts of their financial condition. Now, let me give you a second. A second important principle is this. The best money managers strategically plan for the future. The word I want you to write is plan. After this money manager gets fired, to his credit, he faces the fact that I'm going to be jobless. He starts immediately saying, look, what? Think. I got to come up with a plan. And he does. In fact, we see him planning, watch. We see him planning in verse 4. I know what I'll do. He comes up with a plan. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. I got a plan where I'm going to go. How am I going to survive? Now, many of you have heard the planning saying, and sometimes the sayings become repeated so often they become what we call cliches, but because it's a cliche doesn't mean it's not true. And the planning saying is simply when we fail to plan, we are planning to fail, because you got to have a plan for all the key areas of your life, including your finances. The Bible has a lot to say about being a strategic planner. Let me just give you 2 quick verses. Proverbs 16, verse 9, we should make plans, counting on God to direct us. Proverbs 14, verse 8, the wise person looks where? Ahead. The fool attempts to fool himself and won't face facts. The foolish person, I'm not thinking ahead, don't talk to me about it, but the wise person does. And the Bible has this challenge to us to think ahead, to plan ahead when it comes to our money. And to strategically plan for your money is called a budget. Then just go, oh, bad word. Dave Ramsey, he kind of changes the word budget. He calls it a spending plan. Better word, because you're spending. So he calls a budget a spending plan. Now, you heard us talk for the last several weeks, and especially during our video announcements, we're talking about the Financial Peace University. We've shared it here before. We're going to be sharing it again in just a couple of weeks. It's incredibly great. I've gone through it. I've learned stuff in it. It's just an amazingly insightful about all kinds of areas of life, insurance, just all kinds of things we need to understand. But one of the things about it in the book that goes and the workbook as well as his website, and I've gone to Dave Ramsey's website, there's all kinds of free materials and special things there, is that it's all about educating us in an area that many of us don't get educated in. Let's just talk about for a moment. I don't know if any of you know like wealthy people or people that have done good with their finances, but they often don't really talk about it. And sometimes our parents don't talk about it. People just, it's one of those things that you kind of don't talk about like what you do unless it's somebody that's really close. And so we seldom get the kind of insight and instruction we need to really understand it. And understanding it is so critical. In fact, here's what the prophet Hosea says. Watch. Hosea 4, verse 6, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Now he's talking about lack of knowledge of God first and foremost. When I don't know God, I don't stand a chance. But the principle of destruction coming with people that don't know better is true in multiple areas of life, including our finances. And that's why we're talking so much about financial peace. We don't get anything from it as a church. It's because everyone needs to get educated in godly ways of handling money, understand how money works and how to work our money. The Financial Peace University, it's 9 weeks, it's $99. You go, well, I don't have $99 to spend. It's the best investment you'll ever make in your future, in your legacy. Now, interestingly, our host for it, the person from Bonita Valley who's leading this is Vera Villalbazo. And Vera, if you know her story, she shared her story like a year or so ago with us. She found herself in financial trouble, $50,000 in debt. She was having financial problems, she was having relationship problems, she was having emotional problems, she was having spiritual problems. And another family at Bonita Valley, who at the time, they were our hosts of Financial Peace University, and now they've moved to Texas. They invited her to come, and so she went to the classes and signed up and went through them. And she graduated from Financial Peace. And after, listen to this, within 11 months from graduating from the class, and she practiced what she learned, in 11 months she paid off the $50,000 and she was debt-free in 11 months. But more than being debt-free, she was grace-filled. She accepted Jesus as the leader and Lord of her life. In all of this process, all this crisis she was going through, all the things she went through, she surrendered her life to Jesus. Today, she's part of our volunteer media team. She'll be out of the booth out in the courtyard afterwards because she's the host, because she believes in it because of what's happened in her life because of it. See, many of us, one of the reasons we struggle is we don't have a plan. And once you get a plan, you got to work the plan. This is true in so many areas of life, including marriage. See, I'm convinced that most men can follow a plan. We just don't have one. We need a plan in our marriage. We need a plan in our relationship. We need a plan in our finances. And I can't encourage you strongly enough. Financial Peace University will give you a God plan, godly principles, and if you practice them, they have worked for over 5 million people. And so that's why we present it, because we need to strategically plan for the future. Now, let me give you a third really important principle that's taught in Jesus' short story, and it's this. The best money managers seize limited moments of opportunity. The word I want you to write is opportunity. They seize limited moments of opportunity. The money manager's plan was, I'm going to be out of a job. I'm going to be out of a place to live. So what I'm going to do while I still have my position, see, he still had it for a little while because the owner said, get the books together. I got to find out what's happening. I hear some bad reports. I want to see the books for myself. So kind of wrap everything up. We'll have kind of like a departure meeting. So in this meantime is when he kicks in his plan. I know what I'll do. I'll call the people that owe my boss and I'll cut their bills. And he cuts the first guy's in half. The next guy, he cuts the next person's bill. And they go, thank you. If I can ever do anything for you, well, maybe you can. Just ask, maybe I will. And so his thoughts were, my plan is I'm going to cut their bills. I'm going to be jobless but not friendless. But I got to do this fast. In fact, that's one of the key words here. It's all about speed. In fact, watch this. There's an urgency. Watch verse 3. He asked himself, what shall I, watch this, do now? Okay, there's urgent moments. Not like, well, what can I do next week? No, you need to do it now. Verse 6, he says to his debtor, the first debtor, take your bill, sit down quickly. Why? Because I'm not going to have this job long. Do this right now, okay? Because he understood the urgency of the moment. There's a quote by Leonard Ravenhill that I think is so powerful, and I shared it with you previously. Let me just share it one more time. Here's what he writes. The opportunity of a lifetime needs to be seized during the lifetime of the opportunity. The opportunity of a lifetime needs to be seized during so what he's saying, and the money manager in Jesus' story got this, you won't always have that moment. You won't always have that. Now see, I'm not trying to tell you you won't have future opportunities, but there are opportunities you have them once. How many know opportunity knocks once? Problems ring your doorbell forever, but opportunities knock once. And the question is, will you seize it? Now, again, I'm not going to tell you you won't have more, but if we had the time, we got the stories. How many of you have a story? If I had only, we got all kinds of stories. Some of you would have been zillionaires if you had done what you, like if you had bought stock in Apple. So if we had done something, but we didn't. So the principle Jesus is teaching and that this money manager shows, I want you to write down a couple things about this. Here's the first. We need to leverage our money while it still has purchasing power. Your money is meant to be leveraged, not just accumulated. Okay, you stack your money up. As I told you, when you die, somebody else gets the stack or fights over it. It's not just accumulating a stack of money, it's what you use your money for. Money is a medium. It's between here and there. It's not like medium rare. It's a medium. It's an exchange. It's a tool. Money is all, I work for the money to use the money to get what I want. With me? Money's a tool. Money's an exchange. Money's a medium between where we are and what we want. So you have to understand that your money is all about leverage. And the key to being a great money manager is leveraging your money for what matters most, for what lasts, what's biggest, what's best. Which leads to a second truth I want you to write in your notes. The biggest and best purposes for our temporary money, because it's always temporary, is eternal relationships. I want you to write the word relationships. Jesus said, so use worldly wealth so that you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. See, the money manager in Jesus' story wanted a physical house. Jesus said it's an eternal house. Now listen, this is where some people get really confused. Like, is Jesus saying we can buy our way into heaven? No, he's not saying that. You can't spend enough money. You can't buy your way into heaven. We only get to heaven because Jesus paid our way. Jesus paid it all. All to him I owe. He paid a price for us we could not pay for ourselves. So the only way to the Father is through Jesus. It's not through our buying anything. So what is he talking about? He's talking about leveraging our money for eternal relationships. I told you the only thing in this room that's going to be in heaven is the Word of God, the will of God, not like our Bibles, but what God has said will never pass away, and people. Every person you know has an eternal spirit. And so one of the ways that you and I invest in heaven is we invest in people who are going there. We invest in people. And one of the best ways to leverage your money and mine, let me put it in this phrase. We need to leverage our money for eternal stories, not temporary stuff. Let me say that again. We need to leverage our money for eternal stories. Stories about people, not temporary stuff. Now, let me show you what I mean. Like, watch the screens.
ስሜ ትዕግስት አቡ ነው። እንመራረው ታያቴ ጋር ነው። እናት አለኝ።
ባች ትዕግስትም ወለደች። እነሱ ወደ አባ ሳሙኤል ወደዛ ነበሩ። እሱ ጥሏት ጠፋ፣ ተጣሉ። እሷ ወደ እኔ መጣች። አዎ በቃ ተዘውዳ እሷ አመማት። በቃ ልጆቹን እኔ ያዝኩ። እሷ በሽተኛ ሆነች። ጸበልም ወሰድኳት። አሁን ባለሱቆቹም ያታልወጣ ብላ ስትል ያሳዝናታል። ሳንቲም ለሳሱ ሰጣት ምን እንዲ ሲሉ እዚህ ባለሱቁ አለ ድንቹም እዚህ ፉርኖም ሸጡትም እነሱም በቃ በዚህ ልጆቹ በዛ ትምህርት ቤት ሲያልፉ እየጠሯቸው አንዳንድ ይሰጧቸው ለማያውቁ ማለት
በዛ አቴስ የላት በዚህ ምንም ይላት ምንም ስላልላት ነው ቢኖራት ተሰጠኛለች ምንም ትይላል። በቃ
ከን እንደዚህ እንትን አለችብኝ። ወደ ሐምለት ጋር በቃ ራሴም ህይወቴ ለማጥፋት ከዛን የዛን ጊዜ አንዳንድ እንጀራ የሌለ ጊዜ ይዛን አንሄድም። ከዛን እንደዚህ በቃ ወይም ታጓደኞቼ ጋር እንደዚህ ይዘው የመጡ ሰው ታነሱ ጋር ይቃመሳል ወይም ከእነሱ ይዞ ካልመጣ ውሃ በውሃ እንውላለን። እናቴ እንደዚህ በያማት ኖሮ እንደዚህ ነገር አትሆነ። እዚህ ነበርን። በቃ ወሰናት አስመዘገብ እዚህ ገነት እዚህ ልዩ ምግብ እዚህ ያለች ጎረ እንዴ ብዙ ነገር ነው። ለምን ዛሬ ምን ይበላሉ ዛሬ ምን ይመጣል ተማለት ደስ አለኛ። እንዴ እንደልባቸው ተመግበው
ሁሉም ጊዜ እንጀራ ብዙም ጊዜ ስለማይኖር እዛ ምግብ ቤት ተመጋብተን ይጣፍጣል። በቂ ነው። በስተካከሉ ነው የሚሰጠን። ጭማሪ ካለ ይጨመርልናል። ከዛን ካልጠገብን ደግሞ ይጨመርልናል። በስተካከሉ ይሰጣል። ልክ በልቼ ተጠገብኩ በኋላ ሄጄ እጫወታለሁ። ከዛን ተጫወቼ በኋላ ሄጄ አጠናለሁ። ከዛን ልክ እንደተደወለ ደግሞ ወደ ክፍል ገብቼ አጠናለሁ። ከዛን ጻፉ ተባለ ደግሞ ጽፋለሁ።
እኔም በችግርነትና በአለማውቀቴ
ትምህርት ቤት ሄድ። ከዛም በኋላ ከትምህርት ቤት መልስ ደግሞ ጥናት ማጥናት። ከዛም በኋላ መጫወት ሄዳል። ሌላ ደግሞ ምግብ ለሚያዘጋጁት ድርጅት እኔና ጓደኞቼ በጣም እናመሰግናለን።
ደስ ነው ያለኝ፣ ደስታ ነው የገደለኝ። እኔ ለዚህ ደረጃ ደርሳለሁ አላልኩም ነበር። ዝም ብዬ ሜዳ ላይ ልጆቹም ለማንም ስልች በየሜዳው ለዚህ ደርሳለሁ አላልኩም። በጣም በጣም ነው የማመሰግነው ድርጅቱን በጣም።
እኔ በሕፃንነቴ እነሱ ያንከባክቡኛል። በሕፃንነቴ እነሱ ያንከባክቡኛል። እነሱ ደግሞ እኔ ትልቅ ራሴን ችያለሁ። ከዛን ያን ደረጃ በስትክክሉ ካመጣሁት እነሱ ላግዛቸው ነው። ከዛን እኔ ደግሞ እነሱ ከዛን ራሴን እችላለሁ። ከዛን እነሱ ጎል ልብን ታደስካ
Yeah, it's a video from Feed One, which is one of the feeding initiatives of Convoy of Hope. Convoy of Hope is one of our partners, and we're one of theirs. They're currently feeding 200,000 children every single day in school and feeding programs. They also respond to disasters and disaster relief and hurricanes. And we've sent teams every year. We've sent for the last several years, we've sent teams all over the world. And almost every trip is a convoy trip. And our teams, they could all tell you the stories. Feeding programs and the children and the things that they do. We've sent them to Africa. In fact, our teams last year that went to Africa, they spent their time there, 2 different teams building this greenhouse. And it's growing vegetables that now the school is selling to raise money to pay for the kids and food. It's making like $6,000 a year. It's just amazing because part of what Convoy is doing is not just feeding them, but the empowerment programs, especially for women. A lot of single moms and single grandmothers, and they're helping them start businesses and have businesses because they will work if they could just have jobs. And I tell you all of that because, like, for years of my life, I've supported missions since I was a little boy. I grew up in a home church, and they would have these mission conventions for like 2 weeks, and every night there was like 2 missionaries, and I grew up hearing the stories, and it was just, and I loved hearing about it, and we would make pledges, and we would write our pledge down, and our pastor would read the pledge, he wouldn't read the name, and when I sent my pledge in, I was just a kid, I'd always do like $2.46, and when he read that, I knew that was mine. So like I made pledges from when I was little. I still not only do I tithe on a regular basis, but I give a missions offering above my tithes every single month, and I've done that for almost my entire life. So I've done that and other things with missions. But when Convoy started this Feed One, and part of this came out of a statement that Mother Teresa made. I want to show you the statement she makes. Watch this. She says, if you can't feed 100 people, then feed just one. Because see, sometimes you go, I can't do everything. Well, no one can, but do something. Just feed one. And so when I heard this, and Convoy was sharing with me, and I was talking with Hal and others, and I heard this program, and I saw what they were doing. $10 a month feeds a child for a month. There are over 100,000 kids on a waiting list, just waiting to get into the programs. And I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of feeding programs, and some great ones. But the thing with Convoy is almost not over 90% of what they get goes directly there. They don't have a thing where they'll give you like a sponsorship that you see the child and write letters because there's money involved with that, but the money goes directly to feeding that child. And so I'm going, you know what? I'm going to go beyond the mission stuff I do. And here's what happened, to tell you my story. It was a couple of years back, actually several years ago now, and so we had like cable, and they kept jacking my cable price up, and like I'm not adding anything, so this is getting ridiculous. It's like my mortgage. So I decided I'm going to go to something else. So I went to like a satellite TV, and then they jacked my rates up, and I found another one, and I signed a contract, and I saved quite a bit of money. See, I really we only need like 4 channels at our house. We need like ESPN, Golf Channel, a news, and HGTV. So anyway, so I don't have all the special stuff. I just want the cheap stuff, but I just need a few channels. But when I saved some money, this is a true story. When I saved some money for our family, I said, I'm going to take that money, and instead of just like putting on something else, I'm going to feed children. And so for every time I put more in, I sponsored more and more kids. So my wife and I, we sponsor a number of children, and every single month it's like, I have payments that are like automatic payments. I have automatic feeding kids. Because I want to live for more than stuff. I want to live for stories. And Jesus says, leverage your money. It's not that stuff is bad. Stuff's not evil. God says have fun, enjoy your life. So it's not like don't feel guilty about stuff, but leverage your money for more than stuff. And someday you'll be welcomed into someday in eternity, people that you've never met, but you've leveraged money for them. for an education, for food, for business. In eternity, they're going to say thank you. You're going to be welcomed by people that you made a difference in their life. And when it's all said and done, that thing that I left to somebody else isn't nearly as important as that person I'm going to spend eternity with. The investment in someone's, see, honestly, that's what offerings are about. Like people, church just wants you, church doesn't want you. God doesn't want you. God has all the money. He wants you to be a partner. He wants you to use worldly wealth to influence people in eternal ways. And when you and I do that, we will have stories. Stories that will last forever. And so the challenge of this shrewd manager was to leverage what he had for what he wanted, and there was an urgency to it, and the same is there for us. So I also just put in your notes the feed1.com, and there's all kinds of programs they have, and I'm not fundraising for anything. I'm just telling you that if you want to manage your money in the very best way, you will leverage it for the very best purposes, and that's always people. And one word I want you to write. The best money managers pass the money test. Word I want you to write is test. Because money is not only a means or a tool, Jesus says money's a test. Watch. He continues, Luke 16, verse 10. Whoever can be, watch this, trusted with very little. Because some go, I don't have much, because it doesn't matter. Whatever you have, however little it is, can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you've not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, that's money. Who will trust you with true riches, which is not money? Money's temporary. True riches last. And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, because it's not yours, it's not mine, who will give you property of your own? The second test, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Jesus says money has God-like qualities. I've heard people say that money is just a neutral tool. Well, sort of, but sort of not. Like people go to war over money. They don't go to war over a tool. First of all, I only have like 5 tools, so I'm not going to war over them. But it's not like money is different. Like if you have tools, you go, man, I am all that because I got tools. But when you have money, you think you do. When people have money, people, like, don't raise your hand on this one. But have you ever seen somebody, well, okay, and then you find out they're a millionaire. You go, man, they're good looking. Like it changes how people look, how we look at them. Like, whoa, like I got to be nicer because they got money. Okay, so don't tell me money's just a tool. Money's a force. Jesus said money is a major force. And so one of the things is, am I trustworthy in how I handle it? Because I'm going into business with God. See, the tests of God are not about grading us, they're about growing us. He wants to grow us as his business partners. God's a wise investor. And so he gives you something to see how you do with that. And when you use what God has given you, your talent, your time, your money in the best way, God gives you more because he can count on you because you're a wise investor. And when you don't, you see, it seems so unfair. And in stories, they lost what they had. We always do. Have you heard the phrase, use it or lose it? Okay, come on. How many of you used to do things really great that you can't anymore because you lost it? Okay? The older I get, the better I was because I used to do stuff. Because we always lose it or use it. Same thing is true with our money. And then Jesus says, who do you trust? Are you going to trust in your money as the force of your life, or are you going to trust in God? Because you can't trust in two gods at the same time. And Paul picks up on that very theme. Watch this in 1 Timothy 6, verse 17. He writes, tell those who are rich in this world, that's you. That's me. I'm not rich. You may not be in the 1%, you're in the 4%. Everybody in America, you're in the 4%. Compared to the rest of the world, you and I are incredibly rich. Not to be proud, not to, trust in their what? Money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use money. See, leverage your money to do good. They should be rich in good works and be generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. Proverbs says the person who gives to the poor lends to God. Wow. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future so they may experience, I love this line, they may experience true life. I want to give you a money mantra for the money test, and I put it in your notes so you could take it with you. Those of you who take your notes with you and don't leave them on your chair. I gave you a money mantra, and we're going to put it on the screens. And I want you to say it out loud with me, okay? Here's how you and I pass the money test. Okay, let's read this out loud. Everyone with your voices here. I will not trust in riches, but in him who richly provides. Now we'll do it one more time so it sticks, because repetition's how we learn. One more time. I will not trust in riches, but in him who richly do that. And you'll pass the money test. Jesus challenges us, so interesting in this story. He challenges us in a story about a shrewd money manager, how to be the best money managers we can be. He uses a man who didn't have the best character or integrity, but he was shrewd. To say children of this world who don't trust God, follow God, are often so much better in their money handling for what they want than our children of God. And so he walks us through a story and says, use your worldly wealth, use your money for eternal dwellings. So one more time, if you and I are going to take our life to the best level yet, we got to raise our financial level by managing our money the best we've ever managed it. And there are 4 keys to doing this. The first is to face the facts of our financial condition. Everyone's condition is different. Have you faced the fact? Do you know what you own? Do you know what you owe? Do you have a margin? Do you understand where you are? Do you understand that you and I are not owners? We are managers. Because whatever you think you own right now, in 100 years, you won't own it. We never really do own it. We manage it. And that changes our perspective when I see myself as a manager, not an owner. Secondly, we need a strategic plan for the future. Because when this guy lost his job, what am I going to do? He got a plan. I know what I'll do. When you and I don't have a plan, we're planning to fail. So what's your strategic plan for your money? If you don't tell it where to go, you're going to wonder where it went. So have a plan. Going to Dave Ramsey's seminar is a great step to learn plans, and then you got to implement the plan. The third is to seize limited moments of opportunity because they won't always be there. Please, I know I'm just belaboring this, but the word quickly, he says, the guy, I must do it now, because there are now or never moments. There really are. There are now or never moments that do not come again. You may have others, but you won't have that one again. So he was very quick to do it now. So you and I have to be very aware of moments in our life. And the moments that we need to live for are not the temporary ones, they're the eternal ones. I challenge you with my whole heart. I challenge you to leverage your money for what's going to last. And what's going to last is not our stuff. Enjoy your stuff, but treasure people. Don't treasure stuff. So that when you are on the other side, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings by people that they're there because you had a part to play in their life. And then finally, if we're going to be the best money managers, we got to pass the money test. The test of trustworthiness and the test of in whom do I trust? Isn't it interesting that our money says, has in God we trust? If we're smart, we do. I love our money as well because it has an eagle, because how many know money flies away? So trust in God, not the eagle. Hey, God's a whole lot more stable than the eagle. And when you and I do these things, you will be the best you yet. Father, help us. Help us in this area of our life that it's just like money affects us every single day. And that's why you give us so much instruction about money. Help us, Lord. Help us to understand. Help us to get your heavenly perspective on managing our money. And it begins with serving you first and foremost. If you never surrendered your life to Jesus, right where you sit, I just encourage you to pray, Jesus, I need you in my life. Forgive me of my sin. Be the leader of my life. I will follow you. So you got to get it right. Who's your God? And once you know God, then we start living out his plans for us. And I pray, God, your divine favor on finances. I pray for strategic thinking and planning. I pray people that are so trustworthy that you entrust more and more and more to them, and they make a bigger and bigger eternal difference. May this family of faith make an eternal impact because of what we do with our lives. I pray for each and every one in Jesus' name.